Hey everyone, what's going on? My two young kids just went to bed, so hopefully I'm going to try to make a video here and we'll see what happens. But I got inspired because I just had a crazy synchronicity happen involving Jim Henson and the comedian Andy Kaufman that I really want to talk about. And there's a whole bunch of other things that are going on. I don't know how many things keep coming up in the media that I've talked about. And a lot of these things are things that are synced up to the synchronicities that go on in my own life. And then, a few days later, we get a mainstream media story about it or something of the such. And, we just had like Paris Hilton. She got married, and I had no idea Paris Hilton was supposed to get married or anything. But back in September, I looked up where my book that I made, I looked up where it was created, like who published it or whatever, who actually made the book. And it led me to all this stuff with the train wreck symbolism from 2015. And all that had to do with Lindsay Lohan. So, and then we had a story about Nicole Richie and her hair starting on fire. So I knew Paris Hilton was probably going to be important. And then now here it is, a month later, Paris Hilton's in the news. And I also, in that blog post, I also wrote how I think there's going to be something to do with Amtrak's and train stuff. And I mean, we've had countless stories ever since about Amtrak's derailing and, the one in like Joplin, Montana, and there was like a train stabbing. I mean, there's just been all kinds of stories. I also mentioned how I think there's something important to volcanoes. We might get another volcano eruption. And the next day, the Hawaii volcano then erupted. And we haven't got a movie shooting yet. That's one of the things that I was looking for. A possible movie theater shooting or attack, reminding us of the Batman stuff. But we have got all kinds of stuff synced up to the Batman, like Travis Scott and his, uh, the day before the Travis Scott festival thing. He put this on Instagram, right? The Bat Boy, reminding us of Batman. And we got Alex Jones losing his Sandy Hook defamation case. And Sandy Hook is all synced up to the Batman shooting. And this even happened on the 319th day of the year. If you go back and watch my Gabby Petito video, I talked all about Sandy Hook and Skull and Bones and Batman and how it was synced up to the number 319. And, Adam Peter Lanza, the supposed shooter at Sandy Hook, his name equals 319. And Francis Bacon Gematria. And then, lo and behold, on the 319th day of the year, we get the story about Alex Jones losing his defamation case, right? And, just very simple things, but, defamation equals 88 and 56 in Gematria. And, the story was 88 days, I believe. 88 days before Alex Jones' birthday, we get a story about the defamation case with Alex Jones. And it was also 9 months and 4 days after his birthday, and his full name equals 94. It's just ridiculous. But 56 is important because Sandy Hook was founded in the year 56, and the shooting happened 56 years later, and Adam Peter Lanza equals 56, and, a ton more, right? 56 plus 56 is 112. That's why the media told us that Adam Lanza weighed 112 pounds. This, look, stupidly specific number, 112 pounds. And he was born in a non-leap year on the 112th day of the year, and Sandy Hook in Gematria equals 112, and Alex Jones's birthday is February 11th, which in most parts of the world they write it as 11/2, like 112, and so on. And maybe I'll come back to some of this stuff, but I'm just making a point. There's all of these things. I talked about the pearl symbolism like crazy, right? And then Travis Scott posts a music video called Escape Plan the same day as the Astro World Festival thing. And in that video, he's wearing a Pearl Jam shirt, right? Pearl Jam. And of course, I had a bunch of synchronicities with Nirvana just before this, and think about Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Seattle and a whole lot more. And the anniversary of the moon landing was when the Batman shooting happened. And then we had Chris Cornell, the Seattle guy, right? From Soundgarden, and Chester Bennington dying, and a whole lot more. But I mean, there's just so much stuff going on. Talked about this Buffy the Vampire narrative and how all these stories from 2019 are coming back up. How it was synced up to Cal Penn coming out as gay because that was synced up to the Buffy narrative and this duck narrative, and all of that was related to the Mandela effect, and it was synced up to Nelson Mandela in South Africa and so on. And I hope I will come back and explain this, but then, just a few days later, we get the death of F.W. de Klerk, or however you say this guy's name, but he was the last apartheid president in South Africa. It's, right around the same time, we got the story about the coach on the Mighty Ducks, Emilio Estevez. He's not going to be on the new Mighty Ducks anymore because the Game Changers, that's on Disney Plus, because he's not going to get vaccinated. And all of that was, all of this was linked back to this YouTube strike I got on a music video that I put out called Club Life. And in that video, I used a clip, like a .gif file of the movie The Breakfast Club and the girls dancing. And they gave me a strike, and it lasted until the date 5/16. And then on the date 5/16, this big day I was watching for with The Big Bang Theory and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the big running joke was that Buffy the Vampire Slayer was on that episode, and she got on the airplane and sat with Raj the Indian, and then Cal Penn was the Indian, and it was all linked up to Harold and Kumar in Guantanamo Bay and the Kentucky Derby, so. But just what are the odds we get this guy dying now, right? Synced up to the Mandela effect and synced up to the Mighty Ducks. And, of course, his name equals 173, just like South Africa, just like the Mighty Ducks. And in 2020, I also had this similar synchronicity with the same pattern. And I was talking about how synced up to Goldberg the goalie from the Mighty Ducks. And then Dennis Goldberg, the South African guy who went to jail with Nelson Mandela, died. And his name equals 173. I mean, and then a few days later, I was talking about how the Mandela effect was synced up to the movie We Are the Champions. And at the end of the movie, the song, they don't say of the world anymore. But on the movie Mighty Ducks 2, they do in the film by saying of the world. And I was talking about how it was linked up to the Mighty Ducks and the Mandela effect. And then Brian May fell down and hurt his butt or something. That was a story 2 days later. Brian May fell down and tore his gluteus maximus or whatever, right? And then, I can't even remember it all. But there was just all kinds of stuff going on here. And of course, it was gardening 52 and gluteus maximus, and his name's 52 and whatever else. The new singer of Queen, him and Brian May's birthdays were 173 days apart, like the Mighty Ducks. And, Then I also mentioned how Elon Musk was from South Africa. Then a few days later, we got a story about Elon Musk and not making people wear masks or something at Tesla. And then he also had a baby a few days later, his girlfriend did or whatever. I mean, it's just insane, But you know what? I also in my last video, I mentioned a lot about SpongeBob and Super Bowl 53 and how there's something synced up to blackouts. And that's why Nirvana's important, because I had synchronicity with Zach doing that video where YouTube wouldn't let him leave a comment about the lyrics in the Smells Like Teen Spirit song called, where he says, with the lights out, it's less dangerous and whatever. And remember, Travis Scott was linked up to the Houston blackout that happened back on Valentine's Day. And Paris Hilton is also, I've documented about her a ton in relation to blackouts in Paris, France. And because of the 2015, there was a Hotels.com commercial, and it was this conspiracy theorist guy, and it had a big thing of the Eiffel Tower, and it said blackout dates on it. And, think about Paris Hilton and the Hilton Hotels, Paris. Paris is the city of lights, or the city of light, right? So think about blackouts in relation to that. And that also links up to Batman, because if you go back to 2019, when I got that strike that lasted until 5/16, right around that same time, there was a bunch of Aurora symbolism going on again, because people got their settlements for the Aurora Duck boat crash that happened in Seattle in 2015. And then we also got a shooting in Aurora, Illinois, right around that same time, and the guy Jussie Smollett, uh, who faked his thing or whatever. Can't remember the whole details of that, but if you looked up Jussie Smollett, the first movie he was ever on was The Mighty Ducks, and there's this big old thing with the Mighty Ducks and Wayne's World and how it's synced up to Aurora and Aurora, Illinois, where Wayne's World takes place in. That's also the city of lights, right? So there's a definite connection. But the other day I randomly got this friend request on Facebook from this guy, and I mean, it said I had some mutual friends, so I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe he's going to ask me about DJing or something from this picture. And well, I'm starting to wonder if this guy even knows that he even added me. You know what I mean? I mean, there's just some weird things that go on, and it's like, or did he butt dial it and it's all a big synchronicity? Or like, I don't understand the purpose of why this guy would have added me on Facebook. I have no idea who it is. I only had a few mutual friends, and he never messaged me or nothing, so it's just kind of strange. But I mean, the first thing I noticed when I looked at this, though, is like, look at that. He's wearing a SpongeBob shirt, of all things. And at Super Bowl 53, remember, at Super Bowl 53, SpongeBob, they blew the trumpets from the 35th episode. I explained all this in the last video, but they blew the trumpets, and then Travis Scott, like a meteor or something, came down from space and it hit, and then Travis Scott started playing the song Sicko Mode at the Super Bowl 53 halftime show, right? And look at that. I mean, I don't know if this is the same episode. Maybe SpongeBob wears this in other episodes. But I mean, it is identical to this guy's shirt. And I can't imagine that he does, right? He's even wearing the microphone, or he has a microphone in his hand even. And further, he posted this on 2/3 of 2020 or 2021. And Super Bowl 53 was on 2/3 of 2019. So it's like, I mean, what are the odds? But once again, I want to go back to this synchronicity that I just had a little bit ago. So, and then I'll come back and explain some things. But literally all freaking day, I've been seeing Jim Henson, or just like hints that I should pay attention to Jim Henson. I can't even remember them all. There's like 5 or 6 of them. Like, I was up front working at the gas station. I looked out. There was like a truck, I think. I can't remember what it was. I remember seeing something about Jim Henson, like on a truck that drove by. And I was like, huh, interesting, you know. And later in the day, somebody called and ordered a pizza. Or no, they didn't call and order a pizza. Somebody called, and I looked at the caller ID. There was a bunch of people ordering pizzas at that time. And then I was like, man, I'm so busy. And then I got a phone call, and the thing said Jim Henson, but it was spelled weird. And I was like, Jim Henson, you know, that's weird. And then I was watching just randomly scrolling through Facebook, and I saw this interview with Jim Carrey, and I was like, oh, he's old, whatever. So I figured I'll just click on that. I mean, I barely watched anything, but I randomly clicked on this Jim Carrey interview, and the first thing that he did was he impersonated Kermit the Frog, and I was like, huh, that reminds me of Jim Henson too, right? And I just kept like getting all these Jim Henson things that were going on, and I just was thinking about it. I didn't search for it or anything at work. I just thought, I don't know. We'll keep it in mind, and maybe when I get home, I'll look up Jim Henson. And when I got home, I finally sat down. My kids were being crazy and got a bunch of other stuff going on. But I went to Facebook on my phone, and the first post that came up was this post by a guy I know named Andy Kaufman. And it says, tonight's fire looks more like a demon from a Jim Henson movie. And I'm like, okay, Jim Henson. What am I supposed to see with Jim Henson? So I'm like, I'm going to look up, you know, Jim Henson. And I went and I looked up Jim Henson, and I didn't really see much, you know. And I knew that I had a blog post about Jim Henson from back in the day. I couldn't remember when it was. So I typed in Jim Henson on my blog here. And the only post that came up was something about Bert and Ernie being gay, right? Bert and Ernie, gay or not, September 18th, 2018. And it was all about the number 53 also in relation to, you know, Super Bowl 53 that I've talked a lot about. But He died age 53 on the 136th day of 1990. And Jim Henson also equals 53 with the S exception at 136. And the Muppets equal 53. And his wife, Jane Ann Henson, equals 53. And if you look up his ex-wife, she died 44 days after the date he died, and cancer equals 44, and she died of cancer. And that story about Bert and Ernie came 53 days after the anniversary of Sesame Street. So I was like, huh, all these 53 stuff, right? And I just kept scrolling down, and I looked at the comments I have on here, and I have 2 comments. And look what these comments say. Do you notice the one about Andy Kaufman, the comedian? And I mean, go back to this. The whole reason I looked this up was because Andy Kaufman on Facebook shared this post. And I have a comment about Andy Kaufman dying on May 16th as well. That was the big thing too. That was the big thing I noticed with Jim Henson when I went and looked this up, is that he died on the date 5/16, right? And think about the Buffy the Vampire Slayer stuff that I'm saying. It's all to do with the date 5/16 and the number 516. And that date's really important to France as well, because it's the day leaving 229 days in the year. And France equals 229. And right now we're in the 229th anniversary of the French Republic. And that began on the date 22/9, which was 2 months and 29 days before the French President Emmanuel Macron's birthday, and a whole lot more, right? So I've been saying how this is all important. So it's weird that, we got blackout stuff. There's even all of this stuff, like the Mandela effect stuff. Around that time, I was talking about how the guy from China who built the Louvre pyramid had died, and his name was I.M. Pei, and it was synced with the Slipknot and the Iowa State Fair. And I've been following this date, August 6, 2022, a whole lot, because it's Tisha B'Av. It's the beginning of Tisha B'Av this coming year. And Tisha B'Av equals 53, and it's going to be just after the 53rd anniversary of the moon landing. That's a big old thing that's going on with it. But remember back in August in 2015, that whole month the news was all about Batman and the Batman shooting. So there's definitely something that is linked up to this. And I'll come back to this, because the Alex Jones stuff was 8 months, and it was synced up to the Batman shooting. It was all about the number 86. So it happened 8 months and 6 days before the 53rd anniversary of the moon landing. And James Egan Holmes, the supposed shooter, equals 86. And Aurora, Colorado equals 86. And the guy who plays Batman equals 86. And the guy who blows up the football stadium, Bane, his name equals 86. And Hines Ward in that movie, before they flashed the 322, his name, he wears number 86 or whatever. And Sandy Hook Elementary equals 86. And I went to that movie at the midnight showing with my friend Joel McCall, and his name equals 86. And I also went with my friend Chris Sturgill, and his name equals 86. And that's part of the reason why I made the cover of my book all about the number 86 and the date, because of the date August 6th or whatever. And Alex Jones, if you go back to 2018, when the big old duck theme was going on, Alex Jones, that same day, Alex Jones got banned from social media. And that was the same day that Pink, the singer, had canceled a concert in Australia. And that was the same day that Goldberg, the goalie, got arrested again. Right after I talked about how there was something synced up to a drowning theme in ducks. And then we got a duck boat drowning in Branson, Missouri. And not only that, that was like 39 days before Goldberg, the goalie's birthday. And he was 39 years old, and duck equals 39, and a whole lot more. I just turned 39 years old as well. So, it's insane. It's all linked up. And it was all because I had a synchronicity with my cat jumping on my lap back in December of 2017 after I watched the Jim Carrey movie, The Number 23. And in that movie, he does the crazy gematria of the color pink. And there's a bunch of stuff. His character was fingerling. When I looked up fingerling, it led me to the color pink and the color pinky finger, or the pinky finger. But anyway, right as I told my cat he could jump up on my lap, and I said, because I went pee and he got mad, and I said, there you go. And right when I said, there you go, I was watching one of Zachary K. Hubbard's videos, and he was playing a clip of Alex Jones, and Alex Jones said, there you go. And I linked it up. I can't remember how it was all linked up, but it was linked to the movie The Number 23 and the pink symbolism. So I was like, I wonder if Pink the singer is important. And I looked up Pink the singer, and her first single, the first popular single she released, was called There You Go. And I deduced from that I thought that Pink was going to sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl. Then a month later, they announced Pink was going to sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl. And this big old narrative kept going on and on and on. And Molly Tibbetts was important, and Molly Tibbetts was important to the Iowa Hawkeyes. And the Iowa Hawkeyes paint their visitors' locker room pink. And Molly Tibbetts also got followed on her Twitter. She had a pinned comment about how these cops followed her because they thought she was some other girl wearing a pink shirt or a pink coat or something like that. And a bunch of weird stuff, all synced to the color pink. So, but I can't remember where I was going with that. But, you know, there's so many interrelated things that are going on here that it's just crazy. It's hard to kind of organize, but I'm trying to make it make sense. But anyway, back to this Andy Kaufman thing. So Andy Kaufman shares this, and then I realized that my old post about Jim Henson has a comment about Andy Kaufman. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to look up Andy Kaufman. And first thing I see, he's born on January 17th. And this just so happens to be Jim Carrey's birthday. And Jim Carrey portrays Andy Kaufman in this movie called Man on the Moon. Right? Man on the Moon. And I actually was going to watch this movie earlier this year because of the death of Larry Flint and how it synced up to Courtney Love. And all year, back then I said, I made a video talking about how I think there's something important to Nirvana and Courtney Love and so on. And it was all synced up to this year. And then, back in August or something, we got the Nevermind boy that has his wiener on the album, right? He was trying to sue the Nirvana, and then I've recently had these syncs with Nirvana, so there's something important to this, you know. I knew that, you know, this is how it works. Sometimes I don't understand the synchronicity, but, you know, it might be 9 months later, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is why I was seeing all that stuff, right? But moral of the story with this is that I tried watching this movie, but I kept falling asleep. I don't know, the first 15 minutes of the movie they're not keeping me interested, and then I'm always tired when I watch it. So I'm going to try to watch it again, but it has Courtney Love in it, and Jim Carrey, and I don't even know. I watched a video on Facebook at work too, with Roddy Piper being mad at Danny DeVito, and Danny DeVito is also in this, and Danny DeVito is also the Penguin in Batman, and Jim Carrey is also important to Batman, because he's the Riddler, and the Riddler uses gematria, right, and his riddles. So Jim Carrey, a definite guy, you know, he all about this. But what are the odds that Andy Kaufman and Jim Carrey are born on, you know, they have the same birthday, January 17th. And once again, this is right after the Braves won the 117th World Series, so I looked up the Andy Kaufman that I know, and his birthday is July 2nd. So I was like, huh. And I went from Andy Kaufman, the comedian, to the Andy Kaufman I know. And look at that. Their birthdays are a span of 5 months and 16 days apart. 516. And Andy Kaufman, the comedian, dies on 5/16. You know, what are the odds of that? It's just insane. It's craziness. But I also pointed out that the guy that I know, he actually just moved back from the Dallas area, Fort Worth or somewhere in that area, and he looks a lot like Tony Romo. That's always been a thing with him, that he looks like Tony Romo. So it's just, I don't know. There's something interesting about how that, I don't understand the full thing of this, but Tony Romo was born on the same day as Queen Elizabeth, and that day's the day that leaves 254 days in the year. This big day linked up to Skull and Bones, and Queen Elizabeth was synced up to the World Series and the Pearl symbolism with the Atlanta Braves. And once again, think about Pearl Jam with Travis Scott. Yeah, so there's a relationship there. And Tony Romo equals 268. And this is a big number with the royal family that I've talked about. And with, Prince Harry's 268, Prince Philip 268, Meghan Markle 268, Christopher Columbus 268. This is a big number I keep seeing, and I don't fully know, but whenever I see it, I know that I'm on the right track, if that makes sense. But Jim Carrey is also going to be 60 years old coming up in the next couple months, and Andy Kaufman equals 60, just like Jim Carrey equals 60. So something important there. And in this comment too, Marianne, or however you say that, also talked about Sammy Davis Jr. dying on May 16th. So I looked up Sammy Davis Jr. and it talks about an impersonation portrayals of him, and it says Jim Carrey right in the very beginning, right? Jim Carrey portrayed Sammy Davis Jr. in the 1983 film Copper Mountain. And this just sticks out to me because when I was a kid, I used to go skiing all the time. And the two places we went were Keystone, Colorado, and Copper Mountain. And it's the same Copper Mountain. My Aunt Lydia, I'm almost positive, broke her leg at this one. And I haven't went skiing for probably close to 20 years now, but we always went to Keystone, and then on the other part of the trip, we went to Copper Mountain every year. So I was like, how interesting, Copper Mountain. And when you look up Copper Mountain, it even talks about how that film was the central location for that film. It also mentions Dumb and Dumber, another Jim Carrey film, So it's just like, And believe it or not, I'm actually going to Colorado to go skiing this year, coming up in February 2022. I don't know the exact date. It might be March, I guess, but my aunts are setting up some trip, and a bunch of our family's going to go and so on. And I haven't been there for years, right? So I'm interested to see which resort we actually go to. So, it's just weird. But another thing that Andy Kaufman is known for is his anti-comedy. And I just talked about Norm Macdonald and the relationship to meta comedy and how Facebook changed its name to Meta. But look, when you look up the anti-comedy, it barely mentions anybody, but it mentions Andy Kaufman and Norm Macdonald of all people, right? Norm Macdonald, the guy who just recently died, very important to a whole bunch of the narrative with the Batman and Sean Connery's death. So, there's just these weird things happen all the time. And you don't need to that's why I think people need to start paying more attention, Like every time you see a number 86, don't just assume that means that a person got blood sacrificed or, something of the sort. It doesn't have to mean that. That's what I'm trying to get across. It could mean that, and there's obvious rituals going on. Like the Travis Scott thing was a very, very obvious ritual of some sort, but these numbers have other meanings outside of what you think it means. And I really think when people always say blood sacrifice and human sacrifice and whatever with the number 86, it does not make that much sense, because like the word alive equals 86, right? So it just doesn't make sense to do that every single time you see one in the media. You need to pay attention to these other things that are going on because there's a way deeper relationship to what's going on. It doesn't mean that there isn't really rituals and whatever, but there's a lot more that is going on if you really compare your own life and pay attention to like these deeper things that go on in your life. And I'm not saying I know everything about this knowledge, but I'm saying I've learned a way bigger piece that I feel like not enough people are pursuing, or I don't know, maybe they just can't see it. Maybe for some reason I can just see it better. I don't understand it. I'm just trying to help other people to really be aware of their surroundings and really pay attention. Maybe there's a certain reason, maybe it was because I was born in a pig hour in the dog year and I'm synced up to Sirius, or, who knows? I don't know the exact meaning, but I think more people need to really try to delve into like what is going on with this, and not every time say that the number 86 means blood sacrifice or whatever, Yeah, you 86 somebody. Yeah, that makes sense. But It doesn't mean that someone died at age 86, it doesn't just automatically mean that they got blood sacrificed. You can't prove that. That is, all speculation. And it might sync up to all kinds of things, but it will also sync up to other things if you're really paying attention. It will sync up to events in your life too, if you just pay attention to it. So, and I mean, I've said this a million times, but I truly, I mean it, it's like, like even like saying the word death, right? So somebody dies age 20. I feel like it's silly to write the word death next to that. Yeah, they did die, so it makes sense. But you know what somebody who doesn't understand this knowledge is going to say? They're going to say, well, what about all the people who died at the age of 21? And it makes complete sense why it's true. What if, just because you died at age 20 doesn't mean that the word death is linked up to that, right? And there are tons of connections to the number 38 with death, right? 38 and whatever, rapper and RIP and so on, right? I understand this, murder, the murder, 83 and whatever, but it's just like, it doesn't necessarily mean this, It can have a whole plethora of other meanings that go along with it if you're really paying attention to what's going on. Yes, there is a pattern, but it doesn't prove that it was a murder, right? It's interesting and it links up to that, but it doesn't prove it because I'm sure there's other things that equal 38 that mean life, And so try to get this point across to other people. Basically, the whole point I'm saying is to really pay attention to your surroundings and understand there's not just this one-minded, one-track narrative of understanding this knowledge and seeing the patterns and how they exist, right? So anyway, let's get back on track in the video here, but I actually started making this video on Tuesday, November 16th, but I had to stop and my girlfriend's brother's car or something was, I don't know, I had to go pick him up at work. And it's now Friday, November 19th. And it's just hilarious to me because all of these things that I was talking about in the video that I had started making, there's more stories that are connected to what I was talking about that are going on, such as we had a story about Pink even, right? There was a story about Pink having hip surgery and it's been a brutal recovery. And remember, Pink was the big thing with Alex Jones synced up to the Duck theme, and Pink canceled her concert in Australia on August 6, 2018, the same day that Alex Jones got removed from like a lot of the social media and so on. That was a big thing. That was, that's also a big day with conspiracy theory and so on, because that's the day that the guy who coined the term conspiracy theory was born, and then he died 2 months and 18 days later after the 218th day, and that's August 6th and so on, right? So it's just funny that there's a story about Pink in the news, even, and we also get the death of this rapper, young Dolph, and his death is all linked up to the blackout Super Bowl, and it's also synced up to Adolf Hitler, but just think about it, I'm talking about Paris Hilton getting married, how it's synced up to blackouts, I'm having synchronicity with Nirvana, and the lyrics with the lights out, right? Travis Scott was synced up to the Houston blackout that happened back in February. And, Young Dolph's also synced up to Travis Scott. Think about Adolf Hitler, Young Dolph. Adolf Hitler just so happened to die on the same day that Travis Scott was born, which is the 120th day of the year. And of course, there's a whole bunch of connections to Illuminati and so on with all this. Like, Drake, the rapper, was there. Drake equals 120 in the English extended, and his real name equals 120, which is, Aubrey Graham. His name 120. Kanye West equals 120. Beyonce equals 120. That's why in 2019 it was, we had a story 1 month and 20 days after Drake's birthday that Kanye said Drake was trying to sacrifice him or whatever, right? It was 1 month and 20 days later. And that was also on Taylor Swift's birthday. Think about Kanye and Beyonce and Taylor Swift. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. Illuminati equals 120 as well. So the 120th day of the year is the day that Travis Scott was born and also the day that Adolf Hitler died. So, you know, they love doing this too, programming. They know that people are watching, so then they do rituals and then they have people think that it's the Illuminati. You know what I'm saying? It's like they want you to know. And who knows? I don't know if it necessarily means it is the Illuminati. And that's the question that I'm trying to figure out. We see all this coding and it seems like they are leading certain people down a certain path. But, most people don't know anything about this either. So who knows? Maybe it is the Illuminati. I don't know for sure, but we can speculate through gematria, right? And before I even really get into this is another prime example of what I was talking about, in regards to just saying that a certain number means something. So, young Dolph, his name equals 34, right? Young Dolph. And Memphis, where he's from, also equals 34. And rapper equals 34. All of these make sense. It makes sense to write the word murder in this story because he actually got murdered. That was the story. The detail of the story was that he got shot down, so he got murdered. So writing the word murder that equals 34 makes sense in this story. But if he didn't get, if the story didn't tell us that he got murdered, to me it doesn't make that much sense to write the word murder. Yes, we can speculate that he got murdered, but that does not prove that he got murdered, right? Just because there's a pattern. That 34 might have been, connected to something completely different that has nothing to do with murder. Maybe it was, they're going to later say that he died from a certain type of drug overdose and that, whatever that is, equals 34. It doesn't necessarily mean that he got murdered. So I feel like we need to stick to the details of the story. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just assume that every time something's a 34, it means murder, right? It could mean a bunch of other things. And if he didn't get, maybe he did, there's a song called Murder by Numbers and whatever. But once again, it's something that needs to be pointed out to me. It needs to say, and murder equals 34. So, and there's a song called Murder by Numbers. I think a lot of people just instantly go, oh, he got murdered. But you don't really know. You see what I'm saying? You can point it out, but it doesn't need to be pushed as fact that he got murdered because we don't know. But in this case, we do know. So it makes sense to write murder, right? Hopefully people understand the point of what I am saying. But anyway, this guy is very interesting because in the mix of all this, I also watched the movie Man on the Moon, the Andy Kaufman movie, right? With Jim Carrey. And I've never seen it before, but there's a big piece of the movie where he goes to Memphis and he fights Jerry the King Lawler, right? The wrestler. And that's like a big part of the movie towards the end. And it's interesting, because he goes to Memphis to do wrestling. And Jerry the King Lawler is also from Memphis. And young Dolph, it's just funny that I would even watch this movie. I haven't watched any other movie, but since Tuesday, but young Dolph, has an album called King of Memphis, which leads me to think that there's something important to Jerry the King Lawler, right? The guy from Memphis, he's the king. And in relation to Jim Carrey, it's also interesting that, young Dolph, there's a big connection to the Miami Dolphins, right? The Miami Dolphins, and I'll explain a little bit more, but Ryan Tannehill even, right? The ex-Miami Dolphins quarterback who became the quarterback in 2012, which is the same season as the blackout Super Bowl, but now he's with the Tennessee Titans. Think about Tennessee, Memphis, and he shares a birthday with young Dolph. And I will come back to this, but the whole point I was getting with Jim Carrey here is like Dumb and Dumber, but Jim Carrey's in Ace Ventura that's all about the Miami Dolphins. But young Dolph also has an album called Dumb and Dumber, like this, a play on the Jim Carrey film Dumb and Dumber, right? So, and if you write out Dumb and Dumber like the film, it equals 456, this number that reminds us of Squid Game and so on, and the stock market stuff and the money and the pig symbolism. And I looked up Jeff Daniels, he's the other guy in Dumb and Dumber, and he was born on 219. And this is an interesting thing. I keep seeing this number, like Nirvana equals 219. Seems like a number that's important to blackouts. And Andrew Kaufman equals 219. Andrew Jeffrey Kaufman equals 219. 456 days after Kamala Harris's birthday is the date 219. And Kamala Harris has just in the news a whole bunch too recently in the last few days. So there's definitely something linked up to it, you know? But come back here. We also had a story about a guy from the band The Tokens died, Philip Margo of The Tokens. And of course, The Tokens are known for their big hit called The Lion Sleeps the Night. And once again, in 2019, linked up to that Buffy the Vampire Slayer symbolism, it was really important to lions, right? There was the number 310 was the same day as the Ethiopian airline crash that was synced up to the Lion air crash that happened back in October earlier before that one happened. And then, you know, we had Haile Selassie, who's the lion of the tribe of Judah. And then later that year, Tisha B'Av fell on World Lion Day during the time of Leo, which is a lion, and a whole bunch more, you know. So it's just crazy. Now we get the guy from The Tokens, known for The Lion Sleeps the Night Dies. And if you look up the original version of The Lion Sleeps the Night, it just so happens to be recorded by this guy, Solomon Linda, who's from South Africa, right? South Africa. Think about the Mandela effect. I mean, Philip Margo, who just died, his name equals 173, like South Africa, like the Mighty Ducks, like Dennis Goldberg, like whatever is FM de Klerk. There's just all kinds of stuff. And that was linked up to France as well, right? World Lion Day that year was on the 227th day of or anniversary of the French monarchy falling. And French monarchy's 227 and French Revolution's 227. And it began by the Assembly of the Estates General. Estates General equals 227. Napoleon was born on the 227th day of the year. Napoleon even died 3 months and 10 days after his birthday. His birthday was on 5/5, or his death day. He died 3 months and 10 days before his birthday, and his death day was on 5/5, which is the same day that the French Revolution began. Just had all kinds of stuff going on here. In the mix of this, too, I was at work, and oh, it was random. This other girl I work with asked me if I've ever heard the song Lost Boy by Ruth. And I was like, it's just so random. She just out of nowhere asked me this. And then she showed me the song because she's so proud of it because she just heard of it and she really liked it or something. And I don't know how old it is, but I was like, nope, never heard of it. But in my head, I kept thinking, man, I'm thinking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer like crazy. And now she's asking me if I've heard the song called Lost Boy. And remember, the Lost Boys were also linked up to the Buffy the Vampire Slayer symbolism. And I don't know what it means, but right in the very beginning of this video, though, there's a clock in there, and it's at 6:02. So possibly that is something, you know, something important to that. But I don't know, I wanted to explain a bunch of stuff. I kind of want to just stop this video and make some short videos that explain the lion sleep, or explain the young Dolph stuff. But let me just go all the way back here. And you know what, too? Also with this volcano symbolism, right? I don't know, I mean, all the volcano symbolism happened right around the time that the actor Houston Tumlin died, right? Houston Tumlin was all synced up. And I mean, it's still going on, but the Travis Scott thing, he had a big old volcano on this mountain, right? At the Travis Scott Crowd Crush. And it's in Houston, right? So it's an interesting thing here. And it happened, Houston Tumlin died 7 months and 13 days, before the Houston crowd crush, and Houston's in the 713 area code. It happened 3 months and 1 days after Talladega Nights came out, the anniversary of it, and Houston equals 31. It was 112 days after Will Ferrell's birthday. Will Ferrell, or Houston, also equals 112. So it's definitely interesting how that links up there. I'm wondering too, in relation to the date 219, that's the 50th day of the year, right? And the 50th prime number is 229, and that's that big number with France, right? So and pink equals 50 as well. Pink in gematria. My name equals 50. I'm pretty sure. Let me type it out really quick, but my name's 50. This pink symbolism, pink equals 50. There's a whole bunch of stuff with that, but 219 is the 50th day, and the 50th prime number is 229. So possibly I need to pay attention to France on that day, right? Let me look really quick. I just thought of this right now, but I wonder what day of the French Revolution or the French Republic that is. 219. 150th day. That doesn't stand out to me, but 150. Maybe it's important. Maybe I have to look through some other stuff and figure out 150. Could also be 151. It's interesting. The word lion also equals 50 now that I think about it. Lion. Lion equals 22 as well, right? Next year will be the year 22. It's really big with the Tiger King symbolism. We just had the new Tiger King that came out too, and that came out a span of 666 days after Joe Exotic went to jail on the 22nd day of the year for 22 years, and so on. Let me double check that. I'm pretty sure. Didn't Tiger King just come out on 11/17, and Joe Exotic went to jail on 1/22/2020, which is a span of 666 days. And Lion equals 22 next year. Yeah, there's something definitely. Lions 50. I think Blackout is 52 as well, now I'm thinking about it. Ed 22. Remember when the Blackout Bowl happened? The Ravens were winning by 22 points when the power went out, too. And that was all about the number 34, right? The Super Bowl was on the 34th day of the year, and the Ravens won with 34 points, and Ravens equal 34, and Joe Flacco equals 34, and whatever. The power supposedly went out now for 34 minutes, or it delayed the game for 34 minutes, and the total score of the game, too, was 34 points when the power went out. Joe Flacco even signed the biggest contract ever on the date 3-4 right after that Super Bowl. And Super Bowl 53 that's linked up to Travis Scott was a lot to do with the number 34 and Moses as well. Like, Red Sea's 34 and Sinai's 34 and Canaan's 34, I think. And a whole bunch of stuff with 34. And Moses also lived to be 120 years old, which is interesting considering, Travis Scott and born on the 120th day and all them connections. So, and that's why Ethiopia was important, because Ethiopia supposedly has the Ark of the Covenant that holds the 10 Commandments. That's why Nipsey Hussle died just afterward, right? And his real name is Ermias or something like that, however you pronounce it. And that's an Ethiopian name. So there's some interesting parallels here. I'm just trying to piece this puzzle together as I move along, but 219, I said it's sync up to blackouts, and then it's the 50th day, and blackout literally equals 50. And also think about Kamala Harris and blackouts, right? We talked about this with Obama. Like, possibly Obama being murdered, right? Linked up to blackouts to get the black out of the White House. So that is an interesting thing to think about. But let's move on here. I'm just gonna ramble on this video because I kind of lost my train of thought because I don't remember everything that I was talking about. I think I was just showing some of these recent things that were going on. So I'm gonna go back and look at a lot of them, and then hopefully I want to make a couple, at least one short video talking about the young Dolph thing. But we'll click on this one. So sync with Nirvana and volcanoes. So I was going to band practice the other day, and a notification for one of Zach's videos popped up, and I was like, "Oh, I'll listen to it." I have like an hour drive, so I figured I'd turn it on. It turned out to be a real short video of Zach talking about how he couldn't leave a comment about the Nirvana lyrics. With the lights out, it's less dangerous. Here we are now. It's contagious, or whatever, and so on. Or I don't even know the words, honestly, but I don't think Kurt Cobain did either. But the so I listened to that video, and in my head I was trying to think of the volcano symbolism with Travis Scott and so on, and after I listened to that video, I typed in volcano on my blog as I was trying to figure out what was going on, and the first post that came up was about Nirvana. I had made a blog post about Nirvana and Talladega Nights and the date 319 because that's when the big volcano symbolism really began. It began earlier than that, but like that was the day where I knew absolutely, hey, there's something going on with volcanoes, And we had the volcano eruption in Iceland, and I had the big synchronicity with Will Ferrell in the movie where he's from Iceland and he sings the song Volcano Man. So I was like, interesting, Nirvana. And I'm just watching this video about Zach with Nirvana, and then I realize I need to get gas, so I pull into the gas station, and the gas is $3.19, the big volcano number. And what's funnier is like just a few days before this, I talked about how I had synchronicity with the Mary Poppins stuff and lottery tickets, but a few days before this, I wrote a bunch of Nirvana stuff on these lottery tickets. I haven't done this in a while either. And I read them sloppy, that way no one can like kind of tell, but I wrote Kurt Cobain, Dave Grohl, Axl Rose, I didn't even realize I wrote that one in there. Butch Vig, Chad Channing. I wrote They Live on this one. So it's like, what in the world? But let's see. I want to see what the other ones I wrote. I know I wrote Chris Novoselic on here somewhere. Yep. Well, how the heck do you zoom out? Must not be able to. Francis Bean. I mean, it was all the lottery tickets were Nirvana themed, And well, what the heck here? I gotta go back to it. But I don't know. I just find that interesting that it was just a few days before I did that. And I haven't done that forever. I just randomly since I was talking about Mary Poppins, it's like, I'm going to just randomly write Nirvana on here. And, then I have synchronicity with Nirvana. And the number 319. So I was like, there must be something important. And the next day I was at work. And I have no idea, but I was randomly singing Kiss from a Rose. It just came into my head, and I didn't even realize what song I was singing until I got like through it. And I was like, oh man, that's Kiss from the Rose. That's a Batman song. And then I tried explaining, the one girl had no idea who Seal was. So I tried explaining who Seal was, but I looked up Seal and he was born on 219. And, Nirvana equals 219. And Seal was important. The song Kiss from the Rose is important to, I believe it's from the Batman movie with Jim Carrey in it even. Could be wrong on that, but, it's important to Batman regardless. And Nirvana was also important to that Rose theme with this song, Kiss from a Rose. And so maybe subconsciously that's why I was singing it. I don't even think, I don't know, but Axl Rose was synced up to his feud with Nirvana and so on, but let's see. Yeah, and then in the mix of that, a number three from 319 area code called me. Right, 319, the volcano stuff. I just had synchronicity with 319 and Nirvana. And it was 3 months and 10 days before 219, right? So thought that was funny just because that's that big Buffy number. Let's see here. We also, right after the Astro World Festival, we got Aaron Rodgers getting coronavirus, and that was a big old deal, right? But if you go back to last year in November, I was talking about this big Native American theme that was going on. And, it was synced up to the Green Bay Packers and how they changed Matt LaFleur's birthday on uh, Wikipedia and so on. And Aaron Rodgers just so happened to get coronavirus on 11/3, which is the day they say Matt LaFleur's birthday is now, right? And Aaron Rodgers is also, I don't know if he's married to her yet, but he's at least, his girlfriend at least, is Shailene Woodley. And she was really important with the symbolism in 2016 that I talked about with the Cleveland Indians, right? Think about the Atlanta Braves who just won the World Series and so on. And it was linked up to the Cleveland Indians and changed their name to the Guardians. But I followed this humongous Native American theme in 2016. Pretty much started with the death of Prince on Queen Elizabeth's birthday. And, just all these things kept linking up. It has a lot to do with Kevin Costner, who's also in Yellowstone. And Yellowstone is really big in the news right now. I've never watched an episode of it, but think about Yellowstone and volcanoes and Kevin Costner, though. But Kevin Costner was like, they had like Chief something, I can't remember what his name was. Chief David Bald Eagle. He had died that summer, and he was in the movie with Kevin Costner. Oh my God, my mind's drawing a blank, but whatever. I can't even remember the movie. He's in some movie with where he goes out west. Can't even think of what the movie is, but whatever. He's in a movie about Native Americans, right? And then he's also in Field of Dreams, and then W.P. Kinsella died, and then James Earl Jones' wife died during the World Series that year. But also just before that World Series, we got the Dakota Access Pipeline stuff, and Shailene Woodley actually was in the news for being arrested there for protesting. And the only two movies that I went and saw in the theater earlier that year were her movie called Divergent, and that movie that year was the one about escaping to Chicago, or it had a lot to do with Chicago, and then the Cubs won the World Series. The only other movie I watched in the theater that year was called The Darkness with Kevin Bacon, and that movie was about how his like autistic kid stole the Anasazi rocks and it haunted their house and so on. It was all about Native Americans, which is another reason why I was thinking it was going to be the Indians and the Cubs, because there was this Chicago and Native American stuff, right? The only two movies I saw in the theater that year. And then, so it was interesting during the World Series, we got Shailene Woodley being arrested, at the Native American pipeline, right? So there's just this big old thing. But last year, around the same time, I also talked about Pocahontas and the royal family. And then a few days later, the actress who played Pocahontas got arrested, right? It's like, what are the odds? I'm talking about Pocahontas. Then, like 3 days later, the actress who does the voice of Pocahontas gets arrested 2 times in 3 days or something like that for being drunk. But back in April of this year, I also talked about Shailene Woodley and how Aaron Rodgers linked up to Native Americans, right? His name's 135, just like Native Americans, and it was linked up to Jeopardy. But Shailene Woodley's birthday is also the 319th day of the year, right? The volcano symbolism. Aaron Rodgers equals 268 and 189. Native American equals 268. Braves equal 189. Prince Philip also 189. Royal family 189. So all these things that I'm talking about. And this is a huge number with the stuff with young Dolph, too. you know, the Travis Scott thing was 189 days after his birthday. But in regards to Aaron Rodgers, right, in the Native American theme, Native American 268, Aaron Rodgers, Prince Philip 268, Prince Harry 268, Meghan Markle 268. And I bring that up because the whole Pocahontas stuff was all to do with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, if you go back and watch that video. Because every time Donald Trump called Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas in the news, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were always a headline story too, either getting engaged or having another baby and so on, so I then started thinking about my I just noticed that 268 days after Queen Elizabeth's birthday is January 14th, and that's the anniversary of my Uncle Barney dying in a mysterious car crash in 2017, right after we had all this Zach's car crash and a whole bunch of stuff, right? And it's very strange. Like I've said this a million times, but it's just very weird, He's a fourth degree Knight of Columbus. He dies in this strange car wreck, and he dies at the Jesuit, hospital Creighton. And I don't know, it doesn't make any sense. That very same day, I get a letter in the mail with $300 in it, basically telling me just to believe in God and quit making these videos and stuff. And I still seriously just do not know what to think about that. I feel like the person is legit and it was just a synchronicity, but it's just all so strange. I had a weird comment, a weird somebody also emailed me that same day talking about Obama being in Omaha and this other person dying. And I didn't message them back for like a week because whatever, I just was busy and my uncle just died and so on. And I messaged them back. I never got a message back, so no big deal, whatever. But I swear I was doing a live stream once and they wrote some weird comment that made me think that they were a troll. And then it just like, I was like, well, that's interesting, that I don't know how to explain it, but who knows? Maybe I don't know. There's something just strange about a lot of things that go on. And I don't know. I don't really trust very many people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I try to keep an open mind and I try to be cool with everybody, but it's like, I have a lot of speculation on a lot of things that go on. But who knows? Like I said, it's speculation, but moral of the story is my uncle's name, I just found out, equals 268. And I talked about my grandma too. My grandma is like a quarter Cherokee too, in regards to all that too. So the Native American symbolism. I mean, I'm white as can be, but my grandma's, what was I? Pretty sure my grandma's grandma was like half Cherokee. So, and I talked about that in the old stuff with the Native American theme. And then right after my Uncle Barney died, my Grandma Murphy died, right? So, my daughter's bird also died, dude. Like, my daughter's bird also died, and her bird was named Queenie, of all things, right? And it was also on a day, let me find this here. It was also on a day that I was watching for with Queen Elizabeth. Oh, Halloween. It was Halloween. On Halloween, my daughter's bird died. I came upstairs and it was like in my bedroom and her other bird, and I was like, "What is going on?" Because I DJ'd at the bar and for a Halloween party, and I came back and I was like, "Where are the birds in my room?" And then I noticed that one of the birds was gone. And the next day I asked, and she told me that her bird named Queenie died. And I was like, "Man, I've been watching this day for Queen Elizabeth for a while." And then the bird Queenie dies. Of course, we also had another Amtrak derailment around that time. A man dressed as the Joker stabbed a bunch of people on a train in Tokyo. But oh, so Queenie died a span of 268 days after Elizabeth II's anniversary of being the queen. That was the reason why I was following that, was because of the number 268. So I don't know. There's something interesting to that, how it ties in. 114, you know, who knows? We'll keep an eye on that date with the Queen. Maybe she won't die, but maybe there'll be something connected to her eventual demise, you know. Also, back in the old videos, I called them the Omaha Indians, right? Which equal 268. And I don't know, it's weird. Some people, maybe that's offensive, but like, I can't tell you how many times I've been to the casino in Ottawa, and like one night I was in there taking a piss at the urinal, and some guy came in, and I had a shirt that said Bear Clan on it, and he's like, "Hey man, I like your shirt because my name is Bear," you know, and started talking to him, and then he was he wanted to see if I had any weed or whatever, and I didn't, but if I did, I would have smoked with him. I could have got him some, but moral of the story is the this guy was like, "Yeah, my name's Bear because I'm an Indian man," you know, and like that's happened multiple times. There's a bunch of cool people over there that I'll go and like hang out with sometimes, and like one guy showed me some of his songs and stuff on. He's got like YouTube videos and whatever. So like I don't know, I I try not to say Indians anymore, but it's interesting to me that like that. I've had more than one experience where they refer to themselves as Indians. So I don't know. It's confusing to me, but or who knows? It's just I don't know. Just had a lot of experiences where that's what it is. Like I didn't know. Not even trying to be offensive if I say it. So I'm sorry, but January 14th is also interesting because that's 9 months and 5 days after Prince Philip died, and Queen Elizabeth's 95 years old. Think about the Atlanta Braves and the number 95. We'll skip over some of this, but yeah. Matt LaFleur's birthday is now November 3rd, right? The same day Aaron Rodgers got coronavirus. Matt LaFleur equals 168 like Queen Elizabeth. The Packers played the Chiefs after Aaron Rodgers got coronavirus, right? The Native American theme. Last year I also talked about the Buffalo Bills because of Kyle Callaway and Alton Sterling, and Kyle Callaway was synced up to that Native American theme in 2016. He died in Vail, Arizona, and it reminded me of where Chief Yellow Smoke of the Omaha people had Chief Yellow Smoke. There's a park called Yellow Smoke Park in between Vail, Iowa, and Denison, Iowa. And Denison, Iowa is where Brandon Scherff is from. And of course, Brandon Scherff is making his comeback with the Washington Redskins. I don't know what it is, if he did last week or if it's this coming week. Just remember reading something about how he's coming back after his injury and so on. But I put in here Tennessee Titans equal 268. They were a big thing with that Christmas RV bombing last year, and the Green Bay Packers and Bobby were synced up to it as well, right? So it's just interesting. They're 268. We get the stuff with Memphis. I mean, they're related. What if the Titans don't make the Super Bowl? They're definitely like important to the narrative of how to understand who is going to make the Super Bowl. That is for sure. But oh, I really wanted to stop this video so I can get a little bit back more on track. Just lost my train of thought when I stopped that other video. I already showed the SpongeBob guy adding me on Facebook, which is still strange as hell that a random person adds me on Facebook with the SpongeBob shirt that looks exactly like the SpongeBob from Super Bowl 53. Oh yeah, the same day so Paris Hilton got married, and there was also a story about diamonds held by the royal family for 200 years have finally been sold. And I thought there was another story here. Oh, a story about Yellowstone, right? So we got Paris Hilton, and then diamonds, and then Yellowstone. And if you go back to my video where I talked about the pearl symbolism it was very similar to this. There was a story about Yellowstone in the news, and then I went down, and there was also a story about the Atlanta Braves player wearing his pearl necklace, and just below that, I'm trying to think here. I swear there was a story about. Oh yeah, it's right here. There was a story about Queen Elizabeth I, and then there was a story about the Atlanta Braves player Jock Peterson wearing pearls, right? So there was a pearl story, a royal family story, and also a story about Yellowstone. And think about diamonds and pearls, right? And think about Prince, and I even talked about all this in the the previous stuff, but diamonds and pearls. So it's interesting. I have this noticed this pattern with pearls. The same day there's a story of the Queen Elizabeth in the news, and the same day that another big story is about Yellowstone, and then later I see this story about Paris Hilton, and on that same day we get a story about the royal family and also about Yellowstone. And this one was about diamonds, though, not instead of pearls. And I thought it was the British royal family. It turns out to be it was Marie Antoinette bracelets. So France, right? She was the last queen of France before the French Revolution. So I mean, it makes even more sense. You got Paris Hilton, Paris, France, right? Funnier yet, too, is let's see here. Just trying to think of these. It's been a while since I even looked at these. So Paris got married 268 days after her birthday. And it was also 3 months and 6 days before her birthday, and Paris equals 36. Princess Diana died in France at the age of 36. Is Prince Harry, is he still 36 years old, even? Prince Harry? Or he just turned 36? No, he just turned 37. He was 36 earlier this year, though. But, I talked about Paris Hilton in a post back on January 2nd of 21, and it was about Nashville and a blackout bowl, too. So, which is definitely something important. Paris Hilton's sex tape is also with some guy that was married to Shannon Doherty. And remember, Shannon Doherty, I think, was important to, I said was important to the Luke Perry stuff, right? And how it was linked up to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So, what are the odds that Shannon Doherty was married to the guy that Paris Hilton had a sex tape with? So, she's definitely important. I think I am just going to end the video here. Maybe I'll come back and make shorter videos. I got all day today, so as long as my kids aren't screaming, we'll be able to pump out some videos. I really want to do this one really fast, and maybe I'll be more on track here. So we'll just end it. I'm sorry for whatever, for giving you false hope on some of these things, but we'll see you in some next videos. Peace.